every couple faces death together on a regular basis.
I throw the playing card so fast and accurate that it could slice through a body.
If you puncture your stomach, you have 20 minutes to live at that point.
I think this is something I was born with. I think it's something that's just a God-given talent.
I didn't know how dangerous it was. I almost died.
There's a freedom there when you can manipulate your body in ways that you're only limited to with your mind.
"100 years ago, Robert Ripley went on a quest to the farthest reaches of the globe in search of the extraordinary and unusual. Today, the adventure continues, searching for the world's most bizarre, astonishing secrets. On Ripley's. Believe it or not. You know it when you see it. Uncanny ability, outrageous talent, the daring, the strange, the bizarre. I'm Bruce Campbell. Get ready for these natural-born thrillers. What you're about to witness is hard to comprehend with the naked eye. Only in super slow motion can you really appreciate the talent that Rick Smith was dealt.
I am the world record holder for throwing playing cards.
He's mastered all sorts of mind-blowing tricks with a standard deck of cards. But today, he's pushing his skill to a whole new level, attempting to sever a tiny olive mid-toss from halfway across the room. Believe it or not. At just 1.8 grams, not much heavier than a couple of bumblebees, a playing card hardly seems like a dangerous object. But with the snap of his wrist, this Cleveland, Ohio native can turn them into daggers.
When I was 7 years old, my dad showed me a magic trick. My uncle showed me a coin trick, and basically I tried to learn as many tricks as I possibly could to start fooling them. But I learned how to throw playing cards by accident. I played baseball. I was an NCAA pitcher in college, and we used to have these sock wars. Well, one day I got hit with the sock, but didn't have a sock to throw in return. I pulled out my deck of playing cards. I put the card in between my two fingers, brought it back, and I snapped my wrist downwards, just like I would throw a ball.
He threw a card at me and he hit me in the leg and actually cut me through my baseball pants.
I didn't even think anything of it until one of my friends brought in a world record book. And he showed me the world record for throwing a playing card. At the time, it was 201 feet.
In March of 2002,
There it is.
Rick gets his big chance to break that record at the Cleveland State Convention Center.
216.
Oh, yeah.
That's a record!
216 feet is 72 yards, more than half the length of a football field. An astonishing breakthrough, almost 150 years in the making. Back in the 1870s, card throwing was first popularized by French magician Alexander Herman, better known as Herman the Great. The Herman grip, as it became known, involves gripping the middle of a playing card horizontally between the thumb and the middle finger, while the index finger rests on the corner of the card nearest the hand and away from the body. The wrist is cocked inward at a 90-degree angle, then flicked briskly outward, launching the card. It should slice through the air perfectly flat, minimizing any air resistance that might slow it down. With his prowess as a pitcher, Rick brings a unique spin. His ability to throw a nasty curveball gives his technique an edge.
I found out that I can throw the playing card so fast and accurate that just a regular paper playing card could slice through a cucumber, a carrot, a light bulb, a soda can.
When I was a freshman in high school, I started working with him during the summer. It was very impressive. He was throwing cards 92 miles an hour. I definitely never move. Sometimes I'll flinch if he does throw it really fast.
At that blazing speed, one bad throw and Courtney could cut her face or lose an eye.
I trust him, but it's still terrifying.
Rick's proven that he can throw long, fast, and accurately. But now he's really testing his ability, setting his sights on a moving object that's less than an inch long.
There's a lot of things that go into this. I have to watch when the olive is released. I have to release the card at the exact moment and slice the olive in half in midair.
Rick carefully takes stock, calculations spinning through his mind.
Just seeing him practice and throw some things around kind of makes you a little scared at what damage they can actually do.
He took magic, he took baseball, joined the two things and made a living off of it.
I get to travel the world doing magic tricks, making people happy. So I feel that I have been given this talent and I get to share it with the world.
Rick Smith harnessed his golden arm into a platinum career. But not all greatness comes quite that naturally. Most of us would never even attempt this, chancing death with every single step. But Kimberly Weglin isn't like most of us.
Some of the most rewarding things in life come out of being uncomfortable.
Believe it or not, her life's pursuit is also her greatest fear. Now, she's about to take on her biggest thrill and greatest nightmare at the same time. A wedding ceremony, 400 feet in the air, that could easily kill her and her husband-to-be before anybody says, I do.
When I was little, I was so terrified of heights. I still am scared all the time.
But 5 years ago, Kimberly decided to face her fears through the sport of slacklining.
It was a safe way for me to push past my fear of heights without having to stand on the edge of a cliff and look down and hope it gets better. Then I saw a photo of highlining and I was just blown away. Highlining is when you take that piece of webbing and you put it really high up in the air and you wear a leash and you walk thousands of feet in the air. When I first started, it felt awful. It completely shuts your body down and you don't have control over your body. It's the most primal, instinctual reaction. Everything in your body is telling you to not be up there.
The reaction to fear starts in the amygdala, deep inside the brain. Once the amygdala detects danger, it triggers stress hormones. Pupils dilate, breathing accelerates, heart rate and blood pressure rise. The body is prepared for fight or flight. Not exactly conducive to balancing on a 1-inch wide strip of nylon.
In the early days, Kimberly would have panic attacks. And she would just sit there because it's so much emotion. Your body's screaming, don't do this.
Every weekend, falling. Bruised up, crying, hyperventilating. You learn a lot about what you're made of and what you do and how you react when times get tough. Like, are you gonna tap out or are you gonna keep going? You know, are you gonna finish what you started or are you gonna quit and leave the edge?
So when I saw Kim come down the aisle, it was like, this is it. This is a magical moment.
Everyone's gotta die somehow.
Fewer than 5 performers in the world currently swallow swords with a 90-degree curve. Only 2, including this man, can swallow the 120-degree sword.
Kimberly Wegland spent a lifetime in fear of heights. But 2 years of non-stop, life-threatening practice on a highline begins to chip away at her acrophobia.
It never goes away. So 2 years of just going out, rigging lines every weekend, spending my whole weekend falling, having panic attacks. And that's kind of why we do it. It's to push past that fear and to not let it control us. One day, it just clicked. I was so scared and I was shaking. And then I felt the first time I've ever felt flow state where everything was perfect. I stood up and I wasn't as afraid anymore and I started taking steps and I kind of shocked myself. And then from there, it just kept getting better.
Now, Kimberly and her fiancé, Ryan, are ready to take their biggest leap yet. In January of 2018, Kim and Ryan head to Moab, Utah, and start setting the stage for an event that seems insanely dangerous.
Just felt like the perfect place to get married.
So we were about 400 feet directly off the ground and maybe another 400 feet down to where the river is.
We had the net and we built an aisle into it, which is also made out of netting and rope and paracord. It was something that you can walk on, and we made it so that our families could join us out there on our day if they wanted to. And that was the first time anything like that had ever been rigged with an aisle built into a space net.
The net is anchored to the surrounding cliffs at 5 points. Each of these lines can support up to 400 pounds, allowing 20 very brave people to join in.
If one of the 5 legs were to break that were holding up the net, then it goes limp and people could fall off if they're not attached.
Test the anchors. Feel okay. I think we're ready to get married.
My dad, he was so determined to walk me down the aisle. It was so cute. And our friends practiced walking him up and down this net. And it's really wobbly. It's hard to walk with 2 people on it. He kept saying things like, if it's my day to go, it's my day to go, but I'm gonna do this. And like, everyone's gotta die somehow. He ended up losing his footing and he fell.
And luckily, the aisle kept him on there, but he only had a sling around his waist and he would have gotten hurt if he fell off.
And he was a good sport about it.
So when I saw Kim come down the aisle, I have all my friends around, like the energy we were aiming for was all at this moment, and it was just like, boom. It's like, this is it. This is a magical moment. It was really special.
I must ask you that you agree to love Ryan, joining him today in matrimony.
Hell yeah.
It is my honor and privilege to announce you as husband and wife. Ryan, you may kiss your bride.
I announce Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Jakes.
There's so many things we're afraid of, but the things that you're scared of are the most rewarding things in life if you push past them.
Kim confronted her greatest fear head on. But for one unusual performer, it's more than just mind over matter, it's mind over sharp-edged pain. And if this guy tries to swallow his feelings, it's game over.
My name is Dai Andrews, and I'm a sword swallower, martial artist, and performer of mind-over-body phenomenon.
As anyone in the sword swallowing business knows, there's a narrow road to success. But now, Dai is forging a dangerous new path, one that could kill him in a matter of minutes. Fewer than 5 performers in the world currently swallow swords with a 90-degree curve. Dai believes he can be one of just 2 to master the 120-degree sword. Believe it or not? Dai Andrews has always been drawn to sharp objects.
The bed of nails is a real classic in mind-over-body performance, but I wanted something a little bit more extreme. So I've replaced the standard bed of nails with a bed of 5 razor-sharp machetes.
It hurts. Bad. But Dai just keeps pushing.
I've spent my life studying with kung fu masters in China who taught me the meditative practices that they use to get through pain and that they use to push themselves to the next level. And I am able to employ those same methods for myself.
That cinder block adds 30 more pounds of pressure. And when that sledgehammer hits, the stakes increase dramatically. One of these blades could sever his spine. Then again, Dai's been training for this his whole life.
I first started in all this with a Fisher-Price magic set at age 5. Unlike every other kid, I just never stopped. But as I got older, I got interested in things that were real. I learned about Houdini and escape artistry. I learned to free myself from handcuffs and straitjackets. I was fascinated by artists who could perform mind-over-body feats.
So was Robert Ripley, who sought them out all over the world. Like Edna Price, who got her start in the sideshow business at just 16. With her talent for plunging sharp blades and neon tubes down her throat, Ripley crowned her Queen of Sword Swallowers.
The first time you swallow a sword, it's frightening, obviously. You're feeling all kinds of things that you've never felt before, and the first step is then to try and break those sensations down and say, oh, I feel this thing and I don't like it. But don't stop. What is it? Where is it coming from? How is it being triggered? Can I make it stop? This is the mental process that you go through when you're practicing mind over body.
An X-ray of him in action reveals the inner working of Dai's performance.
When I swallow the sword, it's down the tongue. I use the tongue as a guide through the first esophageal sphincter. You'll then continue to go down the esophagus until you hit a second sphincter at the top of the stomach. Then the sword blade will enter the stomach itself, where it can travel all the way to the bottom.
That is, if it all goes right.
If you puncture your trachea, you might not be able to breathe. If you puncture a lung, it might collapse. The biggest danger is if you puncture your stomach or the lining of your esophagus itself, at which point the digestive fluids from your system pour out and start digesting the inside of your body. You have 20 minutes to live at that point.
No matter how much control you have over your internal organs, there's no natural path for a curved sword. Certainly not for this monster. And still.
anything he started seeing, he would start picking up and balancing it.
I didn't know how dangerous it was.
There's no other way about it. They're supernatural.
Troy, this explosion of talent.
Sword swallower Dai Andrews has spent years controlling his body and mastering his pain. But there's one sword that seems unachievable, the 120-degree sword. Despite the enormous danger, Dai has to give it a try.
To triumph over 120, Dai can't bend the sword to his body. He'll have to bend his body to the sword. If he stands up, the blade will destroy him from the inside out.
When performing these feats, the pain never goes away, but you begin to understand how much of the pain is a mental aversion to the physical sensation. And when you are able to really be with it, then it will no longer bother you.
In life, we all look for balance. This next young man has taken balance to the extreme.
24-year-old Tyler Schuer has a freaky ability. He can balance practically anything on his face. But will he be able to pull off his most challenging stunt yet? Standing atop this 10-foot ladder while balancing this 6-foot ladder using this chin.
I can't do a handstand and walk. I can't walk on a slack line. I just can balance things on my face. If someone were to try to learn this, my advice would be to look at the very top of the item, and wherever it's falling, kind of move your head in that direction to kind of get underneath the object. If you had a baseball bat on your nose, you would have to feel where it's kind of falling before it falls. I have been doing this for 13 years. I have never dropped a single item. And I strictly think this is just a God-given talent. I was bored one day at baseball practice. I was 11 years old and I balanced a bat on my nose. I thought kind of anyone could do it, so didn't really show it off to many people.
Then it was a broomstick, and then it was a shovel, and it was like anything he started seeing, he would start picking up and balancing.
I was so nervous the first time I saw him do anything because, first of all, I thought he was going to get hurt.
I thought it was extremely weird. Who is able to figure out they can do this?
Why do I have this skill? I think it was something I was born with.
Balance is controlled in our inner ears, where fluid and fine hair-like sensors help the body know exactly where it is in space. If the system isn't functioning, you'll feel seasick all the time. For some reason, Tyler was born with an almost superhuman sense of balance.
The first time I ever tried to balance anything, a bike, a chair, a wheelbarrow, a ladder, the first time I could do it. I don't think people can practice it and acquire the skill.
Tyler isn't the only whiz in the balancing business. British strongman John Evans, with his massive 22-inch thick neck, steadies the heaviest objects on top of his head, including this 352-pound car. impressive amount of weight, but what Evans does with the top of his head, Tyler achieves using only his face. Now, his most believe it or not stunt yet.
It's 55 pounds of aluminum, so I have to muscle it up, and I balance the 6-foot ladder on my face while balancing myself on the 10-foot ladder.
I've heard it from scientists, medical experts, that I could blow my lungs out.
I can bend more than almost anyone else I know. Some people have called me a human pretzel.
As an actor, I've made money off my chin for decades, but never quite like this.
It's 55 pounds of aluminum, so I have to muscle it up above my face. When I feel I have it balanced on my chin, I let go of my hands and keep it up there for as long as possible. People don't realize this, but balancing ladders on your face, it hurts. I feel the pressure in my chin, in my neck, in my back. I feel it everywhere.
He's never been tested like this before, and the pressure is enormous.
There's a lot of risk. I could lose focus, I could get distracted, and the ladder comes tumbling down, and I come tumbling down. The only thing that I have to balance on is my feet at the top of the ladder. I kind of discovered this by accident. And now here I am, 10 years later, I'm traveling to Europe. I'm traveling across the country. As long as people want to bring me out, I'm going to come out and entertain their fans.
The average person takes 23,000 breaths a day. Most, we don't even think about. But there's a man who puts his all into every inhale, every exhale. He's a world record breather, and he's about to put his lungs to the ultimate test, using only his airways to lift a truck off its wheels. Believe it or not.
Look at this. What do you think about this, Winter Jackson?
Whew. 5,000 pounds. Brian Jackson will need to apply more force with his lungs than he's ever summoned.
You guys ready for this today?
Can he succeed without blowing out his own lungs?
I truly believe this is what I was called to do, or I wouldn't do it. My dad was Seminole Indian and my mom was Cherokee. About 9 years old, moved to a little town called Wewoka, Oklahoma. And it wasn't until that time that I really was introduced to people that didn't like Indians. Found out there was a lot of prejudice.
In his late teens, Brian's life took a dark turn. He struggled with drug abuse and was repeatedly in trouble with the law.
People ask me all the time, how did you kick your addiction? I didn't kick my addiction. I redirected it. Now my addiction is world records. There was a guy from Luxembourg that blew up and burst a hot water ball for a world record. And I remember thinking, if I could blow up hot water balls, maybe I could break that world record. I started training. I didn't know how dangerous it was. Those hot water bottles pulled more pressure than my lung tissue should hold.
A hot water bottle is made of a high-density rubber. On average, it is at least 12 times thicker than a balloon. So the pressure needed to inflate it to the bursting point is enormous.
When I'm blowing them up, I have to stop all that pressure on my throat. I've heard it from scientists, medical experts, that I could blow my lungs out. When you're blowing up a hot water bottle, it works your neck, your back, your shoulders, your arms, even down to your legs. And it takes every ounce of energy for me to blow into something that wasn't made to blow up. And then you hope to blow it up till it bursts.
Brian succeeds in this challenge like no one else, mainly because his lung capacity pumps out 26% more airflow than the average person. His core muscles act as one massive air compressor, generating tremendous force and pressure. After his success with hot water bottles, Brian started to expand his repertoire.
I know a lot of people think I'm nuts, I'm a fool. I decided I want to see if I can lift a car with just my lung strength. I had never lifted a car. The scientists and medical expert told him, they said, don't let him do this, it's going to kill him.
But Brian didn't heed that warning.
We put that lift bag underneath the car. I started blowing into this thing, and I could start hearing that car move. I'd breathe in and I'd breathe out, and all of a sudden the tire comes off the ground, and everybody started celebrating.
Brian holds 12 world records. He's lifted a 2,780-pound car and a 3,000-pound SUV. Today, he's attempting something he's never done before. This will be the heaviest object Brian has ever lifted.
Ooh, look at the size of that trailer.
This trailer weighs over 5,000 pounds. It would take a Black Hawk helicopter to lift it off the ground. Or just one man with some very impressive lungs.
I want to put the bags down on the ground. The plywood will be on top of it, so when the lift bags come up under the trailer, nothing pops it.
Okay.
A little bit forward, just a minute. Good, right there. The bags have been tested. Should be free flowing to all three bags, so none of them will inflate more or less than the other ones. It should be constant.
Big.
It's a big trailer.
Yeah, it's really big.
Woo!
You guys ready for this today? Brian Jackson's just going to do something that a lot of people really don't understand. They're probably thinking, why are you doing this? He has some of the strongest lungs in the world. He's going to go for it, doing something that's never, ever been done. Are we ready? We're ready. Let's do it.
Oklahoman Brian Jackson is determined to lift a 5,000-pound trailer using only the power of his lungs. Hey, you gonna tell him no?
All right. Are we ready?
I get very nervous. The older he gets, I get more worried.
Brian has to generate the same amount of lift as over 227,000 helium balloons to get this 5,000-pound trailer off the ground.
He was exerting a lot of force through his lungs, and the human body maybe wasn't made for such things as this.
I'm all over him. I'm looking at different angles, seeing what's wrong, what can I do, because it is scary.
For Brian's achievement to be recognized, the official must be able to slide a piece of paper under the two tires.
I want to thank everybody that was out here today, being a part of this. Thank you guys very much.
My dad has had some difficult times in his life, but he lifted a semi-trailer today. Yeah, my dad makes me proud.
A lot of people feel uncomfortable in their own skin, especially if they're considered unusual or different. One such man spent a lifetime trying to hide his extraordinary abilities. Once an outcast, Today, he's a celebrated movie and TV sensation. Believe it or not.
Nature is remarkable in its beauty and also in its singularity. The same is true for an astonishing young man at the end of his own ugly duckling story.
My friends call me Twisty Troy. My name is Troy James. I'm 29 years old.
Growing up, Troy thought his extreme flexibility was something he needed to hide. Can this Canadian contortionist embrace the very thing that makes him different? To most anyone who meets him, Troy James is superhuman.
Geez, are they really superhuman? I am abnormally flexible. I was born with preternatural flexibility, hypermobility in many parts of my body. My fingers, my legs, arms, shoulders, back, and I have fun scaring people with them. It doesn't quite look human. It's been compared to The Exorcist when she runs down the stairs.
Troy's path hasn't always been so smooth. As a child growing up outside of Toronto, he learned the hard way what it means to be unusual.
I would be watching TV upside down or reading a book with my arms bent in crazy positions. It was not until the other little children pointed out that I realized I was different. I was teased horribly when I was a kid. They would say, "You're not human, you're a freak, you're an alien." And of course, that makes you sad.
Troy's uncommon ability is a product of extreme joint hypermobility. 5% of the healthy adult population on Earth has hypermobility. But Troy's unique physiology puts him in the top 1%. Though he feels no physical pain when contorting, the emotional pain does flare up from time to time.
Because I'm more flexible, I can stretch, not realizing I'm in a public place, and then I get weird stares. I got embarrassed about it, and I hid my talent because I was being shamed for it.
Twisty Troy James grew up with a superpower that allows him to bend and flex and contort in unusual ways. Sadly, he was made to see his gift as a curse.
I felt, oh, this is not normal. And of course, the only thing you want to be as a kid is normal. Really got to me, and I hid my ability for a really long time. But things turned around for me in high school. Because I went to an art school, and so it was full of kids who celebrated their quirks. And I happened to have a pretty unique skill. Something I used to be teased for became a really popular crowd pleaser. So I made a lot of friends in high school.
Finally feeling accepted, Troy started to see his hypermobility as a gift and not a curse. And soon, doors started opening.
About 8 years ago, I was working at a theme park. I was a roller coaster operator. My crew knew that I had a special skill, and they wanted me to show the management. Eventually I did, and they were so impressed that they asked me to work for our Halloween haunt. And they set me loose in the park to scare people however I pleased. And I found out pretty quickly that chasing people upside down, covered in blood, was a pretty effective way of doing that.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Halloween Haunt attracted many actor types, people who performed on TV and in movies, and they said, you should audition for this horror movie. I felt it was time I could show people what I really had hidden up my sleeve.
Well, hello, Mr. James.
Roberto Campanella is a world-renowned movement coordinator and professional dancer who's worked on films such as Star Trek and The Shape of Water. He knew from the start what a treasure he'd found.
Let's put the arms a little bit, maybe a little bit higher up. Troy is this explosion of talent, of natural talent. Over 30 years, I've never experienced a talent of that caliber.
Robert Ripley was also dazzled by people like Troy, scouring the far reaches of the globe to find and film them, be it in China with the Buddhist Sam dancers, or back in the US with acts like Joe Lorello, the man with the revolving head. The secret to Joe's act was that he was able to dislocate various vertebrae to turn his head a full 180 degrees. Today, Troy James doesn't need a promoter. His drive to succeed in Hollywood is motivation enough.
I would call myself a creature performer. I'm a walking, talking special effect. When I'm playing a monster, I can make it look like an extreme position or an extreme move and be really aggressive. I can chase people upside down. I can leap at people and jump on objects, which is contortion, but also pretty extreme physical performance. I've performed in several television shows and movies. I've had roles on The Strain. I recently got a role in The Flash as the ragdoll villain. So I'm looking forward to using my flexibility not only to frighten people, but to twist my body into shapes that are inspiring.
Whether these performers were born with extraordinary abilities or spent decades mastering a death-defying skill, it's their passion that keeps us spellbound and keeps them always striving for the top.